Fallout 76 just got another DLC update, I guess, not really. For those of you wondering, there technically was no server downtime, so even though new content went live in-game, it was more of a metaphorical flipping of the switch by Bethesda to make everything go live. And although one of the main big things we got with this new update was the Burrows, which has been recently teased, there was also a couple of other smaller things added in that you may have missed, certain side quests that aren't obvious, and I think this actually gives us a pretty good tease or idea of something around the Sheepsquatch, which is pretty interesting. And I will be talking about this after the Burrows, so stay to that part if you're interested. So the Burrows was an interesting one. On the original Fallout 76 roadmap, all we actually had planned for today was the camera. The camera ended up getting delayed, but at the same time it got delayed, Bethesda announced that the Burrows were getting added in. And this was exciting. It was mentioned in 2 separate Inside the Vault articles, as well as we actually saw it in the trailer. The trailer almost made it look like a horde mode with waves of enemies running at you, while the first Inside the Vault article said that you're going to follow in the footsteps of the Brotherhood of Steel, who sent their own forces into the darkness and muck below Harper's Ferry for mysterious reasons. But I think it was really the second article that got people particularly hyped. We saw a few additional screenshots, as well as Bethesda described the Burrows as a new repeatable dungeon experience. They also described it as being challenging for 2+ level 50 Vault dwellers, but truly brave people could complete this on their own. And of course, the fact that you would be appropriately rewarded with experience as well as loot. Taking that all together with the real lack of endgame problem Fallout 76 has right now, a lot of people were excited for this one. So what is the Burrows like in-game? Now in Harper's Ferry, to actually kick this off, you're just going to find an ominously placed manhole cover. You click on the manhole cover and you are entered into the Burrows. Right off the bat, you're actually going to find a dead Brotherhood soldier and you have to listen to the holotape, and that'll kick off the waste management quest. The quest is only really half of the Burrows, or at least to me it felt that way. It'll take you through the Burrows and make you listen to a couple of holotapes, but there's several other holotapes or notes that you can find that give you a bit more backstory. Before the bombs dropped, the Burrows were just a sewer system under Harper's Ferry. As a result of that, certain people took refuge down here. But after the bombs dropped, quite a few additional people took refuge down here, and they wanted to maintain somewhat of an ideology of allowing people in and helping other people. Going throughout the tunnel system itself, it is one of the coolest locations in this game. You could find some of the remnants of where these people are living, some of the different trading areas they had, but also, as I mentioned, listen to a bunch of cool holotapes or read certain terminal entries to gain a bit more backstory. And the Burrows themselves, especially on your first run through it, feel pretty large and branching. There's a lot of interesting nooks and crannies that you can explore into, or underwater places you can see, although only some of these end up being rewarding. Also in here, you actually can find a new harvestable. I hesitate to call this thing a plant, but at least as of right now, I can't find a recipe that corresponds to this. There might be a new one added into the game, otherwise you're just eating it raw. And actually, as a quest reward for the Burrows, you end up getting a decently cool new weapon. It's a legendary Assaultron blade that has a decent enchantment, and it also might have a secret enchantment. While using this, and several others have reflected that it seems way more likely to dismember enemies. But for me at least, that was really where the positives of the Burrows ended. It's a really cool location that looks like it's going to be awesome, but even has the potential for some great stories. And even though you get some of that, mostly I just found it to be a pretty big disappointment. And for once, I feel like this is kind of Bethesda shooting themselves in the foot. It seems like they hyped this one up almost a little too much, or made it seem like something it wasn't. Going back to some of those original quotes and the way they described it, the mystery of the Brotherhood of Steel coming down here is literally just that there were a bunch of military robots. They detected a signal, they sent someone down, and that's really the entire involvement. You find that one dead Brotherhood soldier, and then you find out the rest of the story about the people actually living here. Even further, when they actually reference this as a repeatable dungeon. I guess that is one way of describing it, but another, more accurate way would be a location with moderately high level enemies. Unfortunately, the Burrows isn't instanced, so there could be 5 people down here all at the same time clearing things out collectively. Or alternatively, you could go down just to realize, oh, somebody just cleared it out and now all of the enemies are gone. Even further, I don't really get why they called it a dungeon at all. There's not really anything unique about this one. It is a tunnel system that looks pretty cool that has a bunch of ghouls in it. pretty similar to, let's say, West Tech Research or the White Springs Golf Course or many other locations in Fallout 76. If that's what Bethesda considers a dungeon, then Fallout 76 has a lot of dungeons all over the map. I guess this one's underground, so that could be part of it. But if you're expecting something distinctively different than just another place that you could grind out occasionally, this isn't that, because that's really all it is, another place you can grind out occasionally. But even further, it's not all that difficult. A lot of people have been taking issue with the 2+ level 50+ vault dwellers. You will mostly find level 40 to level 60 ghouls, pretty similar to a lot of other locations, but I would actually say the Burrows is quite notably easier than things like West Tech or the White Springs Golf Course. Because of the segmentation of this, you might encounter just 5 or 6 ghouls at a given time, and then you could move on to another location and encounter another 5 or 6. Very rarely did I really get swarmed. Most of the time I could just pick them off one by one, and it's not like my character is totally kitted out. For one run, I literally went through this whole thing solo, using an Xbox controller, using the weapon you get as a reward. I wasn't using my overpowered weapons or anything like that, and I still had basically no issue, and again, on an Xbox controller. And then finally, that segment about having good rewards or being well rewarded, there's really no difference here either. You might find the occasional legendary, but in my experience, I was only finding one legendary per clear through. And it's not like the loot from this one location is light years better than any other location. It's pretty much on par or slightly below some of the best ones. So all in all, if you're at least level 40 to 60 and have decent equipment, you could probably clear through the Burrows on your own in all of 10 to 15 minutes. There's really not a ton going on here. The quest is somewhat interesting, but it only involves a couple of holotapes and a couple of terminal entries. It is really short. One aspect of the Burrows that actually is pretty nice is if you nuke Harper's Ferry, it will affect the Burrows. Unfortunately, I found this as being totally cleared out, but this definitely does make Harper's Ferry a lot more lucrative as far as nuke locations go. And also, there's the mystery of that dive suit they showed in the screenshots. That's not presently in Fallout 76. I did the entire Burrows twice. I did all of the side quests, and I still have no idea how you get the dive suit. In fairness, this could just be a random loot reward you can find, but I haven't heard of anyone finding it and it's been 5 hours. And all in all, I don't feel like the Burrows inherently is bad. It was just the hyping or marketing for it that gave me false expectations. It doesn't really feel like a dungeon. It's just another location that you can clear out periodically. I guess to Bethesda, that is a dungeon, but it feels misleading kind of describing it as a high-level, repeatable dungeon. I think it gave a lot of people a false sense of what it ended up being. But again, it is a fairly cool location. If you didn't read any of the marketing and you're just looking for somewhere new to explore or to clear through, then yeah, go to the Burrows. But fortunately, the update doesn't actually stop at the Burrows. We got several other things. One of them is a new bug, unfortunately. Now you get that thing when you die, you have to respawn at Vault 76 again. It seems to only happen some of the times, but naturally this can be frustrating because you have to respawn at Vault 76, then spend caps to fast travel back to wherever you died. But then also those 2 new quests that I was talking about. These are actually pretty interesting because they tie into the Sheepsquatch questline. If you guys do remember, a couple of weeks ago now, we did get the Lying Low questline. There was one main questline with that, but there's also a couple of side quests that had stories pretty relevant to what was going on, and I thought for some of them actually could be relevant to the real Sheepsquatch. In the actual questline, you only found the imposter Sheepsquatch and never encountered the real one. Well, with this latest update, we basically get 2 more of those side quests, and these ones seem even more relevant than ever before to a genuine Sheepsquatch, especially one of them. So if you want to do these for yourself, I'll have a link down below as to where you could go to start these side quests. But otherwise, going forward, I'm going to have some potential spoilers for future Fallout 76 content, so click off the video now if you want to avoid that. One of the quests isn't super indicative. There's a guy saying he wanted to find out what happened to the Sheepsquatch. He seemingly learns that there was an imposter Sheepsquatch created, which is the premise of the main quest of Lying Low. And that one, even though it is a really interesting story and actually gives a whole new purpose to an in-game location, which I really like to see, doesn't lead us too far. But the other side quest that is added in with this is a lot more interesting. More or less, you get to listen to a couple of holotapes and read some notes about a couple on a date. You find out pretty quickly that there's an alternate motive to this, but during one of the holotapes, you get to hear this. Now, this in and of itself could be a lot of things. It's not inherently damning, but what does seem to be pretty indicative of something larger is if you actually look at the two bodies you find there. In each of these, you're going to find mysterious quills, which actually seemed really familiar to me. And if we actually look back to some of those leaked pictures of the Sheepsquatch that are found in the game's files, you get this. And if you compare the quill to the back of the Sheepsquatch, they match up pretty closely. Through data mining, it also seems like the Sheepsquatch is going to have some kind of ability where he could actually fire these quills at you. But even further, in the other quest, you actually learn that apparently the Sheepsquatch can shoot pee at people and it's like acidic, which is one, just kind of funny, but I would imagine that might be one of his other abilities. Either way, this is pretty interesting because it certainly seems like A, the Sheepsquatch is a real and in-game creature. It presently isn't active, but maybe next week or in the next couple of weeks, we will actually get it in-game. Maybe the Sheepsquatch somehow ties into the next questline that is coming in just a few weeks. It certainly does feel weird. We got the Sheepsquatch questline as it was known a couple of weeks ago, and yet we still have no Sheepsquatch. This certainly does feel like a pretty big tease that it is coming, but again, we don't really know when or how. Although this week's Inside the Vault may carry more details around this. Either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.